Ben Fisher, are you ready to fearlessly question today?
I am totally ready to fearlessly question. As a matter of fact, I predict that you're going to ask me some fearless questions.
I tell you, look, this is why I brought him on. He's got the goods already. Um, we'll just loosen up here really quickly. First, fearless question to you. What is the weirdest thing that you do that you will publicly admit to?
Weirdest thing that I do that I will publicly admit to?
Yeah.
I play video games a lot.
Oh, man, that's not good enough.
That's not weird enough. Okay.
Not good enough. I play video games too.
But I play them incessantly. As a matter of fact, I have a whole nother business where, I go to E3 almost every single year, and I play video games and have writers and journalists. No, okay, so that's not weird. Martial artist?
That's kind of weird. I'll give you mine. One of the weirdest things that I'll admit to today is I always put my right sock on first.
Okay. All right. Weird thing. I sleep with earplugs.
Okay, that is weird. All right.
I have very, very sensitive ears,
All right.
so.
Now we're getting to know
Okay.
Ben.
All right.
I will send you a pair of earplugs for Christmas now.
Awesome.
Um,
Hi, Mark. By the way, Mark Trapagan present and accounted for.
all right. So let's kind of start things off. We'll just kind of ease people into this. Why don't you tell us your story, fearlessly questioning, seeing the future?
Okay, so my story starts back. Well, when I was a kid, I liked to tinker with things. I liked to play with things. I like to rip apart VCRs and put them back together. I always like to experiment, kind of troubleshoot things. And back in the 90s, when it comes to, I guess, seeing the future, is I always like to look ahead and say, well, wouldn't that be kind of cool, or wouldn't that be neat, or this is an opportunity. And uh, again, hi, Mark. Um, so I started out and fixing computers, and that was fun. It was enjoyable. And then I built myself a website, and I had a customer who said, "Hey, I like your dancing bananas on your website. Can you build me one?" And I said, "Sure, yeah, why not? I'll build you a website."
Was it really dancing bananas? Was it really dancing bananas?
Oh, dude, it was dancing bananas. It had blinking backgrounds, everything, you name it. It was awesome.
Wanted to make it with actual reference, that's all.
Yeah. And so I built him a website. It was for doing mortgage and personal credit reports online, and I didn't know if it was going to be successful or not. I just knew that it was kind of cool, and it was something that they wanted to do, and I wanted to help them kind of achieve their goals. I didn't know what I was doing, and but I figured it out, and I got a team together. And I will answer that, Mark. So. So it was successful, though. And then after that, my customer went around town and basically he told everybody I built this great website, and he made his money back in 3 months, and all of a sudden everybody wanted me to kind of build websites. So I was like, all right, cool. I'll give my company away basically to my manager for $1, and I'll start building websites. I didn't know what I was doing. I just knew that websites was the future, and I was kind of stumped at the fact, after getting into it and digging into it, as to why people wouldn't put their websites on their business cards. Why wouldn't they put their website address on their front of their store? I looked at it, and it's like, this should be easy for you to do. It's a cost-effective way of building your brand awareness and getting new customers. And yeah, so I guess it was constantly being able to see what the possibilities are. And so, yeah, I guess that's a good place to start.
All right, well, first read this question. Usually we start the show off with the best one that I got. I don't know if that's the case, but we'll see. I think it's all right. So this is a question to you. Why would somebody not want to look into the future?
I think that people would not like to look into the future because they're really comfortable where they're at, or they're afraid of failure. And the way that I always like to look at it is you can't be afraid of failure. Failure is the forge that really teaches us, or at least me, it teaches us a lot of life lessons and just a lot of lessons in general. And the harder we fail, the faster we fail, the more we can really improve on ourselves and improve what we're doing. And so I say, why not try everything? Look for the opportunities. Look for those opportunities where you can fail. And if you don't fail, great. That's awesome. I mean, we were talking about it a little bit in the green room, about an experience that was kind of looking into the future. Had built a board game for one of the industries that I was in, the hosting industry, physical board game, and was using it as a trade show promotional piece for my business. And it was successful at the show. Everybody was like, "Oh, that's such an awesome concept. You know, that's cool. It's great. They love the mechanics of the game." And you know, the App Store comes out for iTunes for Apple, and was like, "Oh, you know what? We need to take this board game and put it out there as as a game." I didn't know if it was going to succeed or not, and you know, we ended up hooking up with a good PR agency, and it was a success. We ended up moving over 250,000 units in the first month, ended up hitting what's hot and what's recommended on the App Store. It was great. On that success, we're like, all right, let's do another one. Let's do another app. Let's do a soundboard called I Am Evil, and it's going to be tongue-in-cheek. We're going to get a great, well-known voice actor to do the sounds on it. We're going to get Codemasters, and we're going to get one of their leading video games at that time called Overlord 2, and we're going to put those sounds in there. And so I got them all licensed and royalty-free. I got an investor for it. It didn't cost much. It failed miserably. And, you know, learned from that lesson for sure.
Well, you said something that was very interesting to me about trying everything. How do we try everything but still stay focused enough to give something enough time to actually pan out?
That's a good question. I think that you kind of have to look at where things are going. It's kind of like if we look at like search right now. You know, back in the day, it was all about links and on-site optimization, and you know, now we're kind of more in the semantic age and more in the authority age of search, and saw that probably maybe about 4 or 5 years ago when personalization was really being rolled out, and you know, looking at schema, and then that kind of the knowledge graph didn't really exist too much back then, but being able to notice patterns and then kind of look forward to that and to where the market's kind of going. But how do you do, okay, to your question, like, God, I feel like I'm stumbling here. How do you kind of choose your battles, I guess is the question.
It's just, I mean, how do you find that focus and know when to cut bait or when to kind of just stick your head down and move forward?
I think when you stop having fun and when it's not a profitable venture, and I guess the way I look at it is when you have to start putting your own money into something, then there's a problem, and maybe you've made a wrong decision at that point. So whenever I start a new venture, it's always bootstrapped. And, you know, I don't put hardly any capital into it. It's usually starting with a customer that has a need. And if it's going to be a success, it's going to continue to be a success because people are going to find value in it. And I'm having fun, and there's a lot of passion, and we can build a team around it. And there's a lot of other people that have passion in it. So I guess to answer your question really succinctly is when you have to start putting your own money into it, then you need to really question whether it's something that is going to be successful.
That is some probably tough medicine for a lot of people here, I would imagine, listening and watching this. And just for everybody out there, too, to remind you, we will be letting you hop in to the conversation if you are fearless enough to ask Ben a question directly to him. All that I ask that you to let us know that you want to come on and that your question should be considered. Put the hashtag camera ready behind it so we know to let you come on, and we'll pick the best one that we want and have you ask it directly to Ben on camera. But Ben, the question then that leads me from that conversation, and when you get into this looking into the future and trying to live there sometimes, how do you convince others to join you?
I don't know if I really convince other people to join me. It's usually kind of a very natural progression. And I guess I take that back. Now I guess I do convince people to join me.
Well, let's separate. So there's the people that are going to be participating as far as like the customers. So that's one side of it. I'm talking maybe more about the people that are involved in the project directly with you, working alongside you.
When I see something, I build a vision for it, and I see myself there, and I see the world around me also there. So I guess that when you have that vision, and when you have that strength and that belief and that conviction, like this is going to be the future, and then you can build, really objective reasoning behind it. And here's why I feel this way. And if you can convey that kind of passion, I guess, behind it, it's infectious to a point. And I think that when you're around like-minded people and they feel the same way, they're like, that makes a lot of sense. They just kind of gravitate towards it, and you end up finding the right kind of people with the right kind of mindsets, the right kind of attitudes. And then if they feel like it's not, at the end of the day, they also kind of gravitating away at the same time, which is totally fine. Yeah. Does that answer your question, Joey?
Yeah, I mean, I think that infection is something that if you haven't experienced it, it's once you have, then you realize what you need to be looking for. My question that I would ask on that is how long do you have for that infection to last? When is it going to fall away? What do you have to prove to them by a certain point before they kind of jump ship?
Well, I think, at the end of the day, you have to prove that you can gain momentum, right? Because, if you're talking about like a project, if it's a one-off project, that's not sustainable, right? You can't build your business off of one customer. If you all of a sudden you start your venture and you've got one customer, two customers, now all of a sudden you've got 10 customers. Those customers are kind of building that belief that you're doing the right thing and that you're following the right kind of lead, and that your hunch basically is right. And so I guess the customers really dictate whether what you're doing is right or what you're doing is wrong. And again, we kind of go back to the point of, well, when do you stick a fork in it? Well, when you're not having fun, you don't have a lot of customers, your customers aren't believing in it. So if your customers don't believe in it, then why would other people believe in it? But at the same time, I think you also need to be able to be very agile, because maybe you did make a wrong guess. That's the fearless question, I guess, that you have for the audience is looking too far in the future a bad thing? Which it can be, absolutely. Sometimes it's more comfortable to look in today.
Yeah, and I don't want you're just a little bit sending out some spoilers there. I don't want to give away too much, because that's where we're going to be going here in a little bit. But we will let you take a break, let you towel off for a second, and ask the audience a fearless question of your own that you have always kind of been a little uneasy to find out the answer to.
Okay, so I do a lot of individual hangouts with people, and one of the things that comes up a lot is what you're doing today scalable, profitable, and fun? And yeah, that would be, I guess, my biggest question for the audience, is if what you're doing is scalable, profitable, and fun. all at the same time. And if it's not, why are you doing it?
That is indeed a very, again, you just pull the Band-Aid right off. I mean, there's no messing around with that question, just like you're saying, if you're putting your own money into it, all that fun stuff. So anybody that wants to go ahead and chime in on that, and let's see if anybody can hit 3 yeses across the board. I would give out a prize. I don't have one, but maybe next time. I didn't come prepared. Let's shift the gears a little bit, though, and I want to kind of slowly walk away from the whole business and the future thing there, because this is a trait that doesn't necessarily just exclude itself to business. Tell me if I'm wrong, but my guess is that there are other areas of your life that you look forward and see the future and kind of get ahead. What kind of challenges have you met in that area of your life, and how have you kind of dealt with them?
In personal life?
Yeah, like, I mean, as far as, like, with relationships and people like that, when you're saying, listen, even if it's just in relation to the business that you're pursuing, that obviously has an impact on the people that are closest around you. How do you overcome that?
In that, I think I always question everything, and I mean that is a tough question, it really is. But yeah, I mean, I guess it's tougher in your personal life to look too far to the future because you're really very much so in the here and now. And the gambles that you take kind of affect things much faster, I guess you could say, versus with business, it's a lot more controllable. But I think when it comes to, like, for instance, the people that I work with, I'm always kind of mindful of what their passions are and what their goals are, and where they want to be as well. And I guess it applies to family as well. Just life in general is trying to always be really mindful of where people want to go, and saying, okay, well, if XYZ is working with me and they want to actually be here in the future, okay, what can I do to help them get them there? And I do that with my wife. I do that with my daughter. I do that with everybody who works together with me. I do that sometimes with my friends, if they're looking, for assistance. And yeah, so I guess you could say it's kind of always trying to look a little bit further out and figuring out what I can do to kind of help people achieve their goals.
And when obviously it's something that you kind of very easy to get resistance on. If you aren't identifying them properly, or you have something that isn't necessarily connecting with somebody at that same level, what do you do in those situations?
I think the only thing that you can do is give advice. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. And I love to give advice. Sometimes it's based on practical experience. Sometimes it's based on just observational experience. Dustin has a great question about mentors, and Dustin's asking, who's been my most influential mentor, whether I've met them or not. And for me, that's been Neil Patel, Guy Kawasaki, Mark Trephagen, my friend, also my mentor. Dustin's a mentor to me as well. He's a good friend, and I always say I couldn't design my way out of a paper bag, and he was a mentor for me for design, but also as a friend. He's got this great personal outlook on life, which is just so awesome to aspire to. And same thing with Mark. So I guess I look, as far as influential mentor, Neil Patel, I've known him for probably over 10 years at least, and he's just a great guy, a great communicator, a great networker, an excellent marketer, and yeah, good friend. So
you are very generous with the term mentor, I'm finding. Would that be correct?
I think that a lot of people are mentors in their own way. Sometimes they don't even know if they're a mentor.
That's very inclusive of you. I like it. Speaking of Mark, he was able to emphatically answer your question with yes. So Mark's showing off a little bit, and we all can be mad at him on our own time. But I do think Mark will be joining us. He's ready for. He's got another question that I want to get him in on, so we'll get to him in a minute. We'll wrap it up here and get Mark in, so we'll save some time for a little back and forth with Mark. But I think really where I want to kind of, as we start to kind of shift this thing down a little bit, we talked about where or how far into the future you should look and plan for, and the people being around you to support you in that. How far can you go? How far out do you get to where it is dangerous, to where you are maybe doing more harm than good? Do you have any sort of roadmap for that? Like, stop here?
I'll start it off with a story. So I kind of talked a little bit about this in our intro. And back in the mid-90s, I was trying to, and I did this for about 6 months, I was trying to rebuild the entire town of Flagstaff in VRML. I wanted to rebuild it in 3D. I wanted to go to every single business and have them have a, excuse me, a webcam, and people would be able to virtually kind of, using VRML 3D, walk through and walk into a store and buy things and see what's in inventory, etc. It was a very ambitious project. And I went to the USGS, and I got them basically, got all of the mapping data for the town, and that was looking well over 10 years into the future, right? Thinking that this would be such an awesome idea if we could pull it off. And man, that was an utter failure. I mean, the technology wasn't supported at that time. We couldn't get buy-in from business owners at that time. So I guess the way I look at it is try to look 2 years in advance. And if you start to see a pattern, you can really kind of forge yourself in your failures, forge yourself in your learning and knowledge and your experience. And, I guess about 2 years out is what I try to look for personally. Because then you can get enough experience under your belt that if you're right, then you've got a great team, you've got the experience, and you really know what you're doing, and you have enough time basically to kind of be really good at what you're doing and deliver a lot of value. And that's, I think, the key point is that you need to give yourself time to prove and give value.
So let's say coming back full circle to one of the first questions that I asked is, about you hit on the comfort and the fear. Let's say we've got somebody out there watching or listening, and they're raising their hand quietly or in their own mind that they are one of those people that are just too comfortable where they are, or they're too afraid to kind of look beyond where they can see currently. How do you help them? How do you become that person if they want to be?
You've got to be willing internally to take the risk and to have other people join you in that risk. And I think that if you allow yourself to become so risk adverse that you can't see the future, you can't see the patterns, and you just want to say, well, this is working for a lot of people right now, so I'm just going to kind of stay right here, and maybe I'll make a living. Which is again why I get back to the fearless question of a scalable, profitable, and fun. Sometimes doing new things is fun, and if you can look out a little bit farther, then you can afford yourself a really great opportunity and have a lot of fun while you're doing it, especially if you align it with your passion.
And Gina Fidel answers your question about the whole passion thing. She said she was able to fail pretty much miserably on the first two parts, but she does have fun. So I guess that's something she's got going for her, right?
Absolutely. But Gina, the thing is that scalable and profitable comes down to systems. It comes down to systems, and it comes down to, I guess, economics at the same time. But if you can build a really good team that has great systems behind it, and then if you can just kind of run the numbers behind it, you can build that scalability and profitability. But at the end of the day, if you're having fun and you're having passion, once you can bring at least one of those other two, if you can bring the first component, scalability, into it, you'll be profitable.
And it looks like Mark Traphagen is getting a little shy on us. He feels that Dustin stole his question. I thought he had a pretty good one that he asked before that, and I'm trying to get him in here to come in and ask, but I don't know. He feels a little. He's gun shy. He's backing away from it. Um, but
Mark had a great question, though.
well, I wanted. He asked the mentor question too that Dustin did, and you kind of jumped. You kind of jumped him in line. But I wanted Mark to come on and ask the what was your biggest crash and burn. I felt like we talked about it a little bit, but do you have more to add to that?
Um, I would say that my biggest crash and burn, Mark, was when I had my first web design agency. And what ended up happening there was is that I wanted to grow really aggressively. And I partnered with a very large internet service provider. They were going to be able to give me the bandwidth to do what I was going to be able to do. They were going to they promised me a much larger customer base. And at the end of the day, really what they wanted is they wanted all my radio station, newspaper, government contacts, and they wanted to basically leave all of my customers that were smaller behind. They didn't want to service those contracts. And so I had a thriving business. I had about 15 employees, and I made a stupid mistake. And I allowed them to take control of the company just so we could grow the business. And I ended up having to walk away from that company. And I ended up calling one of my friends and saying, legally I'm not allowed to reach out to these customers. I said, but somebody needs to take care of them because this company is not going to. And so I called my friend and I said, give some of these people a call and see if you can help them out because they really need it. So it was a huge crash and burn for me. And the lesson that I learned from that is never give up control of your company for the sake of growth. And which is one of the reasons why I've never taken venture capital to build a business ever since.
I'm going to ask you this question really quickly because it seems like venture capital is the hot thing to do, and you hear all these startups. And I was listening to, I think it was Inside PR podcast about are we approaching another bubble burst as far as the technology front goes. What does it say to you about companies like you said you don't take venture capital? I know Copy Blogger has made it a point to not take venture capital. But there are other companies like HubSpot and a ton of a million tech startups that do. What do you do you have any sort of kind of core philosophies behind that?
Well, the core philosophy I think comes back to what we were already talking about before, and that is if what you're doing can be profitable from the get-go, and you don't have to put your money into it, then you're doing great. Now, taking VC money from anybody, you owe them a lot, right? It's just like how Facebook owes their investors a lot, and it forces companies to make interesting decisions that are based on money, right? And not users. So, yeah, I mean, I guess I don't know. I mean, personally, from that lesson. I think when you take money from other people for the sake of growing, you end up losing a lot of a soul in the company in what you're doing. So, yeah. Does that answer your question, Joey? Kind of lost it there.
It does, and I would sum it up in saying, so basically, if I could be a little more abrasive with the answer, are you saying that people that take venture capital are in some ways lazy and not dedicated to just finding that customer first?
I wouldn't say lazy.
Not be politically correct here. Let's just go.
I mean, maybe it is. But sometimes people want to take VC money because they want to grow really fast. Or they need it to get the talent that they need on board. So I don't know if I would apply the word lazy to it because I have some friends of mine who have taken venture capital and it's done great things for their company. Then again, I know a lot of people that have taken venture capital and it's done horrible things for their company, killed their company culture. But yeah, I mean, I think that if you can avoid VC money, avoid it. Avoid it like the plague. And just try to grow your business. And if what you're doing is great, then you're going to find customers. Hit the phones, talk to people, ask your friends. You know, do you know anybody that can utilize what we're doing? You know, explain the benefits of what you're doing. You know, value equals benefits divided by cost. It's a very simple equation. And if you can prove that value, then people are going to flock to you, whether it be people who are working together with you on a team or whether it be customers. And you know, your customers and your team, they're your best allies. So if you've got a vision, go after it, and the vision will prove itself. It'll prove itself in profitability, passion, fun, and ultimately scalability.
All right. I mean, that's about as good as it gets right there. And we've been trying to get Mr. Traphagen in here, but I've sent him several invites, and he has not been getting them for whatever reason. I'm going to stall a little bit while we wait for that. I'm going to send it over to him in a direct chat. If Mr. Fisher, you have any ways to get it to him easier.
Yeah, I can pop it on over. Let me go grab him real quick. Fill the dead air, please.
Yeah. So, but you know, I think you know, coming back to the whole comfort and fear thing, because I think that's really the core of this conversation. I think it was in the conversation I had with Chris Brogan. He drew the Venn diagram of comfort and awesome, and the two circles don't touch. I think that is kind of how you have to approach this as well, too. Would you agree?
Yeah, I mean, this is not comfortable at all. I mean, trying something which is untried, unproven, untested, and you don't know if it's going to work or not is, well, it's extremely uncomfortable. When it works, there's no better feeling in the entire world. When it doesn't work, it sucks, but you learn from it. You know, what have you wasted? You know, you maybe wasted some time. But you, again, the lessons that you learn along the way are lifelong.
Well, we finally managed to get our buddy that we've been talking about pretty much under the kind of the subplot of the show the whole time. Mark is here to join us, and I've already committed 2 Google sins today by using up both of his questions. I feel like my account will end tomorrow.
That just means Mark's going to ask me a really hard one.
But, do you have a question, or just do you want to say hi?
No, it's just been, yeah, I'll ask a question. It's just been interesting experiencing this from the outside. Normally on the inside of a Hangout, and now I'll have a little bit more empathy for our audiences trying to ask questions. There's apparently a much bigger lag between the typing in the comment and when you guys see it than I thought.
In your defense, it feels extra sluggish today. It feels like way worse, but that's just
might just be glitching today.
Yeah.
Anyway, 2 questions, 2 fearless questions, very quickly, for the amazing Ben Fisher. One is,
hi, Mark.
You're not vaping on camera today. Have you given up that nasty habit of the devil?
Oh, my. Okay, all right.
Before we started.
So, all right. So, little secret that people may or may not know is that I am an electronic cigarette vapor. So, I usually don't use it on an HOA. Mark knows this. But yes, this is nicotine. I guess, you know, actually this kind of is core to the future, right? The early adopter is that I stopped smoking cigarettes 8 years ago. I was at a convention. I was at CES. I was walking out to go grab a cigarette, and I saw this guy smoking in the middle of the convention center. And I was like, what the heck is he doing? And it happened to be this little itty-bitty company called Enjoy, which happens to actually be in Arizona. And I walked up to him and I was like, well, why are you smoking a cigarette in the convention center? And he's like, well, let me show you my product. and it happened to be electronic cigarettes. So there we go, Mark.
All right, good. I just wanted to expose a real, since you were giving lame,
Just for you.
kind of lame kind of things that you were embarrassed about, or whatever the question was, the first question. Just trying to get something real out there. Okay, my serious, business-oriented, fearless question to you is: you've built a business now, a tool that's based on a individual platform for the most part, Google+. Do you see that as risky, basing your business on somebody else's platform?
Oh, man. I tell you what, Mark, I appreciate that question so much because I jump in real quick because the original title of this show was Fearlessly Questioning Putting All Your Eggs in Someone Else's Basket.
Okay.
All right.
Now I stole your question.
Yeah, we're even. Well, we'll never be even, but yes. Go ahead, Ben.
All right, Mark. Awesome question. So, common misconception about steady demand is that we are a company that makes a tool. Drink, by the way, Mark. So, we started. Okay. So, excellent question. I will get around to answering it, but I need to come kind of full circle on it first. We started the company out with all of our eggs in one basket, saying that we were going to just manage brand pages on Google+. Seeing the future as, hey, this was done before Twitter, done before with Facebook. The companies came in and started managing pages. G+, of course, a lot more complicated, has much more far-reaching benefits. So we wanted to become experts at that. And so the first tool that we built was to help people to connect their brand pages to Google+, to their websites, because a lot of people were having problems with that. Mark, actually, maybe we should have done something about, rel equals author in hindsight, but just saying.
Let's thank God you didn't.
Yeah, right. So we used that to kind of gauge also the marketplace at the same time, and that's why we built that as a free tool. And then we said, okay, well, let's build some good analytics tool behind it. And that was the Steady Demand Pro, which is the tool that you're talking about. At that point, when we were building it, there was a big question in our mind, and that was if Google was going to roll out any kind of statistics for brand pages. And we kind of knew it was going to happen. So we built the tool to be used in such a way that it would allow anything public, personal profile or business profile, to basically have data behind it. And then we built it as a learning tool for the DIY crowd. And that reason is that there's going to be a DIY crowd. If we take a look at kind of the graph of innovators, early adopters, etc., there's always that DIY crowd, which is we're just starting to come out of the DIY. But it was a branding exercise for us. And it worked really great, from that aspect, and provided some great data and value for people. But the question now, putting all the eggs in one basket, is that's actually something that we've learned, and that is that G+, as we know, is kind of moving more towards, well, G+ is Google, right? And so it's kind of one of the reasons why we've repositioned ourselves a bit and started to focus a lot more on Hangouts on Air and doing those professionally for companies. Because Hangouts on Air, at the end of the day, it's content. What we're doing here today is content. Yes, we've got live viewers, we've got engagement. Gina Fidel, I'm wearing black socks. And it's a beautiful experience, but at the end of the day, we're creating content. It's going to be repurposed into, a podcast. And we've seen that, and so we learned a lot about that. So G+ is not, I guess, our only basket anymore, because we've struggled for two and a half years now almost to educate companies about G+, and they still don't get it.
Yep.
I think you see that every day, Mark, right? It's like you say G+ to them, and they go, I'm already on Facebook and Twitter.
If you ever want to suck the life out of the room, just say Google+ to somebody.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. That'll do it.
Exactly. So So I guess the learning lesson there is that when you do put your eggs into one basket, is that you have to constantly question yourself, and you have to constantly question the marketplace, and you have to be agile at the same time, and be able to recognize it. Although who knows, brand page management could become awesome. Does that answer your question, Mark?
Yeah, very well. Thanks, Ben.
All right. Well, Mark, I appreciate you hopping in. Also, a former Fearless guest as well, episode 8. If anybody wants to go check out Mark on the hot seat, I appreciate you for hopping in. But Ben, I do appreciate you taking the time. We'll go ahead and close this up. And you've spent so much time with us and being very generous. Where can people find more Ben Fisher?
Well, you can find me at my verified name, plus Ben Fisher on Google+. You can always find out information about our company at Steady Demand or plus Steady Demand. And yeah, I'd say look to my Google+ personal profile is probably the best place. You can find me on LinkedIn as well, but there's links on my Plus profile about that.
All right, fantastic stuff. And in talking about the repurposing of content, this will be, like Ben said, this will be in a podcast form. So if you do want to support the show, feel free to head over to iTunes or Stitcher. Subscribe to us there if you're on the go, and leave us a rating and review. Or what I like to tell you to do is ask a fearless question over there. We'll see what happens. I don't know what they'll do with it, but let's see what happens. So Ben, Mark, appreciate you guys taking the time to be with us here today. We're going to go ahead and get out of here. We'll see you on the next one. Take it easy, everyone.